Ramzan Akhmadovich Kadyrov is a Russian politician who currently serves as the head of the Chechen Republic. He was formerly a member of the Chechen independence movement, and is a colonel general in the Russian military. Kadyrov is the son of former Chechen President Ramzan Kadyrov, who switched sides in the Second Chechen War by offering his service to Vladimir Putin's administration in Russia and became Chechen president in 2003. Ramzan Kadyrov was assassinated in May 2004. In February 2007, Ramzan Kadyrov replaced Alu Alkhanov as president, shortly after he had turned 30, which is the minimum age for the post. He was engaged in violent power struggles with Chechen commanders Sulim Yamadayev and Sedmagomed Kakiyev for overall military authority, and with Alkhanov for political authority. Since November 2015, he has been a member of the Advisory Commission of the State Council of the Russian Federation. Kadyrov rules the Chechen Republic through despotism and repression. Over the years, he has come under criticism from international organizations for a wide array of human rights abuses under his government, with Human Rights Watch calling the forced disappearances and tortures so widespread that they constituted crimes against humanity. During his tenure, he has advocated restricting the public lives of women, and led anti-gay purges in the Republic. Kadyrov has been frequently accused of involvement in the kidnapping, assassination, and torture of human rights activists, critics, and their relatives, within both Chechnya and other regions of the Russian Federation, as well as in abroad, through the political use of police and military forces. He publicly denies these accusations. Kadyrov has adopted a macho image where he frequently poses with guns and military garb, as well as displays his opulent wealth. The Kadyrov family has enriched itself considerably during its rule of the Chechen Republic. The Russian Federation dispenses extensive funding to the Chechen government, while the distinction between the Chechen government and Kadyrov is blurry. Biography. Kadyrov was born in Tsenteroy, in the Chechen-Ingush ASSR, in the Russian SFSR, part of the Soviet Union. He was the second son in Akhmad and Amani Kadyrov's family and their youngest child. He had an elder brother named Zelim Khan, and he has two elder sisters, Zargan and Zulai. Kadyrov strove to gain the respect of his father, Akhmad Kadyrov, who was an imam. He claims that he always emulated his father. Akhmad had supported the call for jihad against Russians during the First Chechen War but switched sides and declared allegiance to Russia in the Second Chechen War. In the early 1990s, as the Soviet Union dissolved, the Chechens launched a bid for independence. During the First Chechen War, together with his father, he fought against Russian armed forces. After the war, Ramzan was the personal driver and bodyguard of his father Akhmad, who became the separatist mufti of Chechnya. The Kadyrovite militia was formed during the First Chechen War when Akhmad Kadyrov declared jihad against Russia. The Kadyrov family defected to the Russian side at the beginning of the Second Chechen War in 1999. Since then, Kadyrov led his militia with support from Russia's Federal Security Service, including the provision of service ID cards, becoming the head of the Chechen Presidential Security Service. The militia later became known as the Kadyrovites. Deputy Prime Minister. After his father, the then president, was assassinated on May 9, 2004, Ramzan was appointed as the first Deputy Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic on May 10, 2004. When his sister was detained by the Dagestan police in January 2005, Kadyrov and some 150 armed men drove to the Kasavy city police building. According to the city mayor, Kadyrov's men surrounded the GOVD, forcing its duty officers against a wall, and assaulted them, after which they left the building with Zulai Kadyrova, victoriously shooting in the air. In August 2005, Kadyrov declared that Europe's largest mosque would be built in place of the demolished ruins of Grozny's shattered downtown. He also claimed that Chechnya is the most peaceful place in Russia, and in a few years it would also be the wealthiest and the most peaceful place in the world. He said that the war was already over with only 150 bandits remaining, and that thanks to his father, 7,000 separatists had already defected to the Russian side since 1999. When responding to a question on how he is going to avenge the murder of his father, Kadyrov said, "I've already killed him, whom I ought to kill. And those, who stay behind him, I will be killing them, to the very last of them, until I am myself killed or jailed. I will be killing for as long as I live." Putin is gorgeous. He thinks more about Chechnya than about any other republic. When my father was murdered, he came and went to the cemetery in person. Putin has stopped the war. Putin should be made president for life. Strong rule is needed. Democracy is all but an American fabrication. Russians never obey their laws. Everyone was stealing, and only Khodorkovsky is in jail. He remained the first deputy prime minister until November 2005. Acting prime minister. Following a car accident in November 2005, in which Chechnya's Prime Minister Sergei Abramov was injured, Kadyrov was appointed as the caretaker Prime Minister on November 18, 2005. He immediately proceeded to implement elements of Sharia law, such as declaring a ban on gambling and alcohol production. In February 2006, responding to the publication of the Mohammed cartoons, he accused the Danes of spying and being pro-terrorist. He also banned Danish citizens from entering Chechnya, effectively banning activity of the Danish Refugee Council, the largest non-governmental organization working in the region. Kadyrov is quoted as saying, that cartoonist needs to be buried alive. He was eventually pressed to overturn this decision by Moscow, a rare example of federal intervention in Kadyrov's rule in the Republic. Prime Minister. On March 1, 2006, Sergei Abramov resigned from the position of Prime Minister and told Tartas news agency that he did so on the condition that Ramzan Kadyrov lead the Chechen government. This was followed by a decree of Kadyrov forcing women to wear headscarves. He also rejected a federal appropriation of the Republic's budget, demanding more money, and called for all federal forces but the border guards to be withdrawn. Kadyrov was appointed as the Prime Minister of the Chechen Republic by Alkhanov on March 4, 2006. Shortly after taking office, Kadyrov approved a project to erect a presidential palace on a 30-acre plot by the Sunzar River in ruined downtown Grozny. The project, which was also to include a 5-star hotel and recreational facilities, was estimated to cost around 1.5 billion rubles to build. Later, Kadyrov called for refugee camps scattered across Chechnya to be closed down, calling the refugees international spies who are interested in stoking conflict between Chechnya and Russia, who are seeking to destabilize the situation in our region. Reuters quoted him as saying that liquidating the refugee camps will allow us to uncover spies who are working for foreign intelligence services. His cousin Odzbay Sultanov was appointed to the position of First Deputy Prime Minister by Alkhanov on March 6, 2006 after being unanimously approved by the Chechen Parliament. On June 5, 2006, Speaker of the Chechen People's Assembly Dukvaka Abdurakhmanov said at a press conference in Moscow that there is no alternative to Kadyrov for the presidency. Kadyrov has exclusive awards in combat, and has made achievements in improving the peaceful life and in human rights protection. Who could replace him at this stage? Nobody, he said. Later that year, Umar Jabrailov, Chechnya's representative in the Federation Council and a close ally of Kadyrov's, urged Dukvaka Abdurakhmanov to initiate a measure calling on Kadyrov to become the Republic's president, thereby replacing Alu Alkhanov. The following week, several Russian newspapers reported that a worsening security situation in Chechnya was lessening the likelihood that Kadyrov would replace Alu Alkhanov as the republic's president. Other media, however, reported that Kadyrov continued to strengthen his position at Alkhanov's expense. He was also elected as the chair of the Chechen People's Assembly in late October 2006. On December 6, 2006, Kadyrov said that he would seek the prosecution of the commanders of federal military units responsible for the death or disappearance of civilians in Chechnya. In addition, Kadyrov said the war in Chechnya was unleashed not by the Chechen people but by the Russian leadership. Kadyrov's comments may have represented his government's increasing unhappiness with certain figures in Moscow, who were said to be blocking his elevation to the post of Chechen president. In 2006, leaked cables from an American diplomat recounted a lavish wedding attended by Kadyrov in Russia's Caucasus region in which guests threw $100 bills at child dancers, and which had nighttime water scooter jaunts on the Caspian Sea, and a report that Kadyrov gave the newly married couple a 5-kilo lump of gold. On February 5, 2007, Kadyrov said he did not aspire to become the Chechen president. However, he criticized Alkhanov. Kadyrov also claimed the war in Chechnya was ultimately finished, with all informal armed groups eliminated. Alkhanov, for his part, criticized the cult of personality and idealization of one person, a clear reference to Kadyrov, whose enormous portraits are prominently displayed in Grozny. President of the Chechen Republic. On February 15, 2007, Putin signed a decree removing Alkhanov and installing Kadyrov as Chechen's acting president. On March 2, 2007, following Putin's nomination of Kadyrov as Chechen president, the Chechen parliament approved the nomination. In the following days, serious changes took place in the administrative setup of the republic, affecting both the top and middle-ranking officials. Former Deputy Prime Minister Odzbay Sultanov was elevated to the vacant post of Prime Minister. Critics allege that Kadyrov is actively building his own vertical of power in the republic, and encouraging nepotism by placing men of his own family in all the leading and important positions. A Russian daily, Gazeta, reported that according to a poll conducted by the independent Levada Center, only 33% of Russians believe that Kadyrov can be trusted, while 35% believed that he cannot. Asked whether they thought Kadyrov could normalize the situation in Chechnya and end the bloodshed there, 31% said yes and 38% said no. On March 14, 2007, Kadyrov said that human rights abuses were a thing of the past in his republic, rejecting new charges of torture made by the Council of Europe. 2 days later he accused the federal authorities of torturing detainees. On March 19, 2007, Kadyrov vowed to put an end to all remaining guerrilla activity in Chechnya within 2 months. On April 5, 2007, Kadyrov was sworn in as president of Chechnya. He appointed his maternal cousin Odzbay Sultanov as the prime minister of the republic on April 10. After the car bomb attack on Yunusbek Yevkurov, president of the neighboring Republic of Ingushetia on June 22, 2009, Kadyrov claimed that the Kremlin had ordered him to fight insurgents there, and during his subsequent visit to the Republic on June 24 pledged ruthless vengeance. In late December 2009, Kadyrov claimed that remaining rebels were getting financed by the West. "I officially declare this: those who destroyed the Soviet Union, those who want to destroy the Russian Federation, they stand behind them." He also suggested that Russia should attack Georgia and Ukraine. "It's Russia's private affliction. Why should we always suffer if we can eradicate this for good?" In early August 2010, Kadyrov had claimed that there were only 70 Islamist militants left in Chechnya. In the same month, he proposed changing the title of President of the Chechen Republic to Head of the Chechen Republic. On August 12, He also called upon presidents of all North Caucasus republics to petition the State Duma to change their titles, stating that there should only be one president in Russia. The Chechen parliament unanimously approved this change on September 2. However, Speaker of the Chechen parliament Dukvaka Abdurakhmanov stated on September 4 that the title will be retained until the end of Kadyrov's term in April 2011. In February 2011, he invited the players of Brazil's 2002 FIFA World Cup winning team to play a match against a Chechen football team led by Kadyrov. The Brazilian team was named as Brazil 11. In addition, Rud Gullit was hired by Kadyrov to train FC Terek Grozny. Assassination attempt. Attempts at consolidation of the Chechen nation. Centuroy and Chechen parliament attacks. Head of the Chechen Republic. Kadyrov was nominated to a second term as president by Russian President Dmitry Medvedev on February 28, 2011 and was unanimously elected for a second term by the Chechen parliament on March 5, 2011. After his election, he stated that he was going to continue the current course of reviving the republic's economy and society. On March 8, he captained a Chechen football team which included current players of FC Terek Grozny, former players of Soviet Union national football team and former German midfielder Lothar Matthäus in a match against the team Brazil 11 which included ex-Brazilian footballers like Romario, Dunga, Bebeto and Cafu. Kadyrov scored twice during the match but his team lost 6-4 to the Brazilian side. Kadyrov said that he had organized the match to show that Chechnya had recovered from years of separatist conflict. He also said that the Brazilians weren't paid to appear but came out of goodwill and in return for a donation to flood victims in Brazil. Kadyrov was sworn in as head of the Republic on April 5, 2011. In November 2012, he visited Azerbaijan to sign intergovernmental agreements. In December 2012, he ordered the closure of the newspaper Kadyrov's Path after one of its reporters asked Putin a question about the violence once focused in Chechnya spreading to other republics and followed it up by asking about the fate of a local radio station. Kadyrov had reportedly taken a disliking to the question asked by the reporter to Putin. Kadyrov termed former President of Ukraine Viktor Yanukovych's ouster as a coup d'état in a deliberate attempt to exert pressure on Russia through Ukraine, however at the same time placed the blame on Yanukovych for the situation in Ukraine. On February 28, 2014, he affirmed his readiness to dispatch peacekeepers in a consignment of humanitarian aid to Crimea. After the 2014 Grozny bombing, in which ISIL's hand was suspected, he said that he might block internet in Chechnya as anyone could easily find and listen to a sermon by a jihadist. After Kadyrov went on a tirade against ISIL on Instagram for threatening Russia, ISIL commander Omar al-Shishani put a $5 million bounty on him. On May 26, 2015, he announced that he was going to star in a Hollywood thriller titled Whoever Doesn't Understand Will Get It, which will be directed by a director of famous Hollywood films and also feature global film stars. Kadyrov in July 2015 denied that ISIL had any territory in Chechnya and claimed that they never will. During an interview in October 2015, he suggested that Putin should send Chechen special forces to Syria, claiming they will wipe out ISIL in weeks. On December 3, he promised revenge against ISIL for beheading of Kasiev. On February 8, 2016, he claimed that Chechen special forces had infiltrated ISIL cells. Kadyrov announced on February 27, 2016 that he would step down at the end of his second term, which was set to expire on April 5. However, he later decided to run in the elections that were to be held that September. Putin appointed him as the acting head of Chechnya until the elections in a decree signed on 25 March. Kadyrov launched his reality show titled The Team, with the first episode being aired by Channel 1 on June 30. People from across Russia were invited by Kadyrov to register for the contest. The winner of the contest will go on to become head of Chechnya's Agency for Strategic Development. On September 18, 2016, Kadyrov was re-elected with nearly 98% of the vote. Philip Verichenko, a native of Dusseldorf, was chosen as the winner of Kadyrov's reality show on November 22 and was appointed as a government aide. Kadyrov visited Saudi Arabia on November 27 where he met the Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. During the meeting, they discussed Russia-Saudi Arabia relations as well as issues of common interest. He also visited the United Arab Emirates on the same day and met Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. The two discussed friendship, cooperation, and strengthening ties. During his visits, he praised King Salman of Saudi Arabia for his leadership of the Muslim world and efforts to combat extremism. On November 28, he stated that veterans of American Special Forces would not be allowed to train security and intelligence personnel at a tactical city in Gudremez because they weren't as good as Russian Special Forces and there were sanctions against all official structures from the United States. On November 29, he claimed in an interview with Ishark Al-Azate that only a few dozen Chechens were fighting with ISIL, adding that most of them grew up in Western Europe. He also stated that measures taken by Chechen authorities had been successful in bringing back many young recruits before they reached Syria. During an interview aired on November 27, 2017, Kadyrov stated that he was ready to resign as head of the Chechen Republic, calling it his dream as he found the responsibility to be too heavy. He announced on December 5 that no Chechen athletes will participate under a neutral flag at the 2018 Winter Olympics. After an attack on the Church of Archangel Michael in Grozny on May 19, 2018, Kadyrov stated that he had personally overseen the operation to eliminate the attackers. On September 26, he signed an agreement with Yunusbek Yevkurov, the head of Ingushetia, resolving the border dispute between the two Russian republics. The agreement, seen as grossly unfair to Ingushetia, ignited widespread protests, eventually leading to resignation of Yevkurov on June 24, 2019. Kadyrov was given the rank of Major General in July 2020, through an executive order of the Russian president. He added on his blog that he had been transferred from Ministry of Internal Affairs to the National Guard of Russia. COVID-19 pandemic. Russian invasion of Ukraine. Chechen economic recovery and reconstruction. In 2006, the production of Chechnya's industry increased by 11.9%. In 2007, the rate of growth was 26.4%. In February 2010, head of the British delegation of the human rights group Lord Judd, formerly bitterly critical of the Russian authorities for the situation in Chechnya, pointed out a striking change for the better in the Russian North Caucasus Republic. Judd said that changes which occurred since his visit as a member of PACE delegation in 2000 were so overwhelming that sometimes you forget about what happened here until quite recently. According to a 2016 report by Russian opposition leader Ilya Yashin, Kadyrov collected enormous wealth, primarily through theft of federal subsidies for Chechnya. Between 2001 and 2014, Chechnya has received over 464 billion rubles in subsidies, grants, and donations, with federal subsidies accounting for 80% of the republic's budget. However, the administration of Chechnya is being criticized for spending public funds for their personal benefit. In 2010, Dmitry Medvedev noted that federal funds often do not reach people, we know where they disappear. It is obvious they are being stolen. For example, the fleet of official vehicles in Chechnya accounts for half of all official vehicles in all Northern Caucasus republics. Public funds are being funneled through Ahmad Kadyrov Foundation, which, while being registered as a charity, has never produced or published any financial reports as required by Russian law. These violations are ignored by Russian Ministry of Justice, which in many cases has enforced them very strictly against other charities. The foundation operates a building company that services most of the publicly procured infrastructure projects in the Republic and also collects a fee from all working citizens of Chechnya, ranging from 10 to 30% of their earnings, raising 3-4 billion rubles per year this way. Kadyrov himself declares annual income of 4.84 million rubles, which is inconsistent with his lavish lifestyle, luxury vehicles, watches, race horses and mansions. In 2020 ProNite.media published an in-depth analysis of business operations of Kadyrov and Adam Delimkhanov, who are allegedly running multi-million-dollar businesses in Moscow through a proxy provided by businessman Pavel Krotov. Policies. Human rights. Kadyrov has been personally implicated in several instances of torture and murder. A number of Chechens opposed to Kadyrov have been assassinated abroad, and several witnesses report the existence of a 300-name murder list. Chechens who have been murdered, where Kadyrov's involvement is suspected, include Muvlady Byzarov and Ruslan Yamadeyev, Sulim Yamadeyev, Gazi Idil Sudanov, Islam Janabekov, Ali Osiv, and Umar Israilov. Kadyrov stated in December 2009 that he had personally helped many of the murder victims and their families and was not their enemy. I don't want to kill. Who did I fight? I fought terrorists. Who did I protect? I protected the whole of Russia so that people in Moscow or St. Petersburg could live in peace. They accuse me of killing women and children. It's not true. A mutinied commander, Muvlady Byzarov, said that Kadyrov acts like a medieval tyrant. If someone tells the truth about what is going on, it's like signing one's own death warrant. Ramzan is a law unto himself. He can do anything he likes. He can take any woman and do whatever he pleases with her. Ramzan acts with total impunity. I know of many people executed on his express orders and I know exactly where they were buried. On November 18, 2006, Byzarov was killed in an ambush by members of Kadyrov's police on Moscow's Leninsky Prospect, about 2 kilometers from the Kremlin. On November 13, 2006, Human Rights Watch published a briefing paper on torture in Chechnya that it had prepared for the 37th session of the United Nations Committee Against Torture. The paper covered torture by personnel of the 2nd Operational Investigative Bureau, torture by units under the effective command of Kadyrov, torture in secret detentions and the continuing forced disappearances. According to HRW, torture in both official and secret detention facilities is widespread and systematic in Chechnya. In many cases the perpetrators were so confident that there would be no consequences for their abuses that they did not even attempt to conceal their identity. Based on extensive research, HRW concluded in 2005 that forced disappearances in Chechnya are so widespread and systematic that they constitute crimes against humanity. Anna Politkovskaya, a veteran Russian reporter who reported extensively from Chechnya, claimed that she had received a grainy video footage shot on a mobile phone of a man identical in appearance to Kadyrov, and said that the clips were the murders of federal servicemen by the Kadyrovites, and also kidnappings directed by Kadyrov. These are very serious things. On the basis of this evidence a criminal case and investigation should follow. This could allow this person to be brought to justice, something he has long richly deserved. On October 7, 2006, Politkovskaya was found shot dead in an elevator in her apartment in Moscow. She was allegedly working on an article revealing human rights abuses and regular incidents of torture in Chechnya at the time of her murder. Some observers alleged that Kadyrov or his men were possibly behind the assassination. On October 23, 2006, a criminal case was registered on the basis of the videotape frames published by the Novaya Gazeta newspaper in Anna Politkovskaya's article. Sergei Sokolov, deputy editor-in-chief of the paper, told the Echo Moskvy radio that it can be clearly seen in the video as to how Kadyrov's military forces are beating federal soldiers with participation of a man looking like Ramzan Kadyrov. German human rights group the Society for Threatened Peoples, which branded Kadyrov a war criminal, has alleged that up to 75% of recent incidents of murder, torture, rape, and kidnapping in Chechnya have been committed by Kadyrov's paramilitary forces. The Memorial Group investigator stated in its report, "Considering the evidence we have gathered, we have no doubt that most of the crimes which are being committed now in Chechnya are the work of Kadyrov's men. There is also no doubt in our minds that Kadyrov has personally taken part in beating and torturing people. What they are doing is pure lawlessness. To make matters worse, they also go after people who are innocent, whose names were given by someone being tortured to death." He and his henchmen spread fear and terror in Chechnya. They travel by night as death squads, kidnapping civilians, who are then locked in a torture chamber, raped and murdered. According to the International Helsinki Federation for Human Rights, many illegal places of detention exist in the Chechen Republic. Most of them are run by Kadyrovites. In Ptsenteroy, where the Kadyrovite headquarters is located, there are at least 2 illegal prisons functioning. One consists of concrete bunkers or pillboxes, where kidnapped relatives of armed Chechen fighters are held hostage, while the second prison in Ptsenteroy is evidently located in the yard or in immediate vicinity of the house of Kadyrov. The Kadyrovites are often accused of working as a death squad against Kadyrov's enemies. Kadyrov is rumored to own a private prison in his stronghold of Ptsenteroy, his home village southeast of Grozny. Fields around Ptsenteroy are allegedly mined and all access routes are blocked by checkpoints. On May 2, 2006, representatives of the Council of Europe's Committee for the Prevention of Torture alleged that they were prevented from entering the fortress. A video leaked out in which armed men, loyal to Kadyrov, displayed the severed head of a Chechen guerrilla for public display in the village of Kirchaloy. They mounted the head on a pipe, together with blood-stained trousers, and put a cigarette on him. It was displayed for at least a day as they came back a day later to record it again. On September 21, 2005, a similar incident occurred, as published by Memorial as well as Kavkazský Uzl, which described shocking details of a special operation conducted by forces loyal to Kadyrov. On March 1, 2007, Ludmila Alexeyeva, the head of the Moscow-Helsinki Group Rights Organization, stated that Kadyrov was to blame for kidnappings of many innocent people. Their bodies were found later with signs of torture. Umar Israilov was assassinated in Vienna on January 13, 2009. Israilov was a former Kadyrov bodyguard, who cooperated with the New York Times, extensively detailing abuses committed by Kadyrov and his associates. Israilov had told Austrian authorities in 2008 that he had been threatened by an agent sent by Kadyrov to drop his lawsuit against the Chechen leader at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, France. On April 27, 2010, the Austrian prosecutor's office announced that they believed Kadyrov had ordered the kidnapping of Israilov and Israilov had been murdered while attempting to escape. According to the investigation, there was evidence that Otto Kaltenbrunner, one of the suspected kidnappers, had been in contact with Kadyrov personally. On July 15, 2009, Natalia Estemirova, a member of Memorial Society, who investigated the alleged abuses by government-backed militias in Chechnya, was abducted and shot to death. Memorial's chairman Oleg Petrovich Orlov accused Kadyrov of being behind the murder, and claimed that Kadyrov had openly threatened her by saying, "Yes, my arms are up to the elbows in blood. And I am not ashamed of that. I have killed and will kill bad people." Kadyrov denied any involvement in the killing and promised to investigate the killing personally. He condemned the killers, and in response to Orlov's accusations, said, "You are not a prosecutor or a judge, therefore your claims about my guilt are not ethical, to put it mildly, and are insulting to me. I am sure that you have to think about my rights before declaring for everyone to hear that I am guilty of Estimirova's death." It was later reported that Kadyrov would be suing Memorial for defamation and slander, targeting Orlov personally with his complaint. Memorial said in a statement on August 19, 2014 that when Kadyrov had lost his mobile phone during a wedding ceremony on August 16, the police questioned thousands of people who had attended the wedding into early hours of the next morning in an attempt to find it. A man who criticized local officials and apparently Kadyrov in a YouTube appeal to the Russian president became a target of many threats, due to which he had to flee to the neighboring Republic of Dagestan. In May 2016, his house was burnt down by a group of masked men and his family was dragged out, put in a car and were thrown under a bridge. His wife also stated that they threatened the other residents with burning down their houses as well if they reported about the matter to anyone. Later, the Chechen police cordoned off his village in order to hunt him down. Kadyrov's spokesman denied these reports were true. The complainant later publicly apologized to Kadyrov and accused the media of distorting his remarks in his video complaint. He again fled to Dagestan in November 2016. According to human rights activist Svetlana Ganyushkina, he had to flee after Chechnya's deputy interior minister Aptai Alatinov personally threatened to kill him. After Memorial's Chechnya head Oyub Titiev was arrested in January 2018 over drug possession, Oyub's supporters claimed the charges were fake and were made up by the Chechen authorities to suppress criticism of Kadyrov. Kadyrov called Oyub a drug addict while criticizing those working with human rights activists and warned them off from working in his region. On January 30, 2020, Imran Aliyev, an anti-Kadyrov blogger, was murdered in a hotel in Lille. French authorities have identified the alleged killer as a hitman having connections with the Chechen leader and who had traveled with Aliyev in a train from Belgium to France. Tumso Abdurakhmanov, a dissident Chechen blogger, was attacked in February 2020, but managed to overpower the assailant, who claimed he had been sent by Moscow. Swedish prosecutors stated that the Chechen government was suspected of being involved in the attack. Dagens Nyheter reported on the trial in November, saying the attacker admitted that he was sent by the Chechen government, but had planned to fail. Another arrested suspect denied her own involvement. On the evening of January 20, 2022, Zarema Yangelbayeva, the wife of Sadie Yangelbayev, a former judge of the Supreme Court of Chechnya, was abducted in Nizhny Novgorod and taken to Chechnya for interrogation. A day later, she was charged with assaulting a police officer. Kadyrov said the former judge's family members would either be in prison or underground and asked the Supreme Court of Russia to kick out Yangelbayev from the reserve and erase his name from the history of the judicial body. Yangelbayev lost his position as a judge in 2015, saying he was forced to do so. Yangelbayeva is the mother of Abubakar Yangelbayev, a Chechen human rights activist and former lawyer for the Committee for the Prevention of Torture (NGO). Rounding up, torture and execution of gay men. Kadyrov has previously encouraged extrajudicial killings of homosexual men by family members as an alternative to law enforcement. In some cases, gay men in prison have been released early specifically to enable their murder by relatives. In April 2017, international media reported that gay men in Chechnya were being arrested, detained, and tortured as part of a region-wide pogrom. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on May 5 that he would personally ask the Russian Prosecutor General and Interior Ministry to help Kremlin rights ombudswoman Tatyana Moskalkova check the reported abuse. UK Deputy Foreign Secretary Sir Alan Duncan told the UK Parliament he had been informed of alleged plans to eliminate Chechnya's gay community by the start of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan, which commenced on May 26, 2017. Chechnya has denied the reports, with its interior minister calling the allegations an April Fool's joke. Kadyrov's spokesman Alvy Karimov rejected the allegations and described the report in the Russian newspaper, Novaya Gazeta, as absolute lies and disinformation, basing his denial on the claim that you cannot detain and persecute people who simply do not exist in the republic. If there were such people in Chechnya, the law enforcement organs wouldn't need to have anything to do with them because their relatives would send them somewhere from which there is no returning. Vladimir Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov also said that there had been no evidence found to support the allegations, adding that he had no reason to doubt Kadyrov's claims that no one under his rule has been persecuted for their sexual orientation. In an interview with HBO's Real Sports aired on July 18, Kadyrov said, "We don't have those kind of people here. We don't have any gays. If there are any, take them to Canada. Praise be to God. Take them far from us so we don't have them at home. To purify our blood, if there are any here, take them." He added that gay people were not human. Asked about the accusations of systematic torture, Kadyrov said, "They made it up. They are devils. They are for sale. They are subhuman. God damn them for slandering us." Sanctions. On December 20, 2017, the United States imposed sanctions under the Magnitsky Act on 5 Russian nationals including Kadyrov, accusing him of personal involvement in repression, torture and murder. U.S. officials accused him of heading an administration involved in disappearances and extrajudicial killings, and that one or more of his political opponents were killed at his direction. He was added to United States Department of the Treasury's blacklist, which also included a Chechen security official Ayub Kativ along with 3 other Russian individuals for their criminal involvement in a corruption case uncovered by Sergei Magnitsky. In response, Kadyrov mocked the sanctions on his Instagram account. "A sleepless night is waiting for me." He further stated, "I can be proud that I'm out of favor with the special services of the USA," and added, "In fact, the USA cannot forgive me for dedicating my whole life to the fight against foreign terrorists, among which there are bastards of America's special services." President Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov called the sanctions illegal and unfriendly, stating, "We consider these sanctions illegal, we consider them unfriendly, and we do not agree with them." He also stated that it was highly probable that Russia would retaliate by accusing U.S. officials or citizens of rights violations and banning them from the country. Further sanctions were added on July 20, 2020, with United States Secretary of State accusing him of increasing abuses on civilians during the COVID-19 pandemic. His immediate family were also sanctioned. The sanctions also ban him, his wife and 2 of his daughters from traveling to the United States. Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Zakharova told Sputnik that they will try to impose retaliatory sanctions. Kadyrov meanwhile posted a picture of himself along with firearms, saying, "Pompeo, we accept the fight. What comes next will be more interesting." Threats to journalists. In 2004, Kadyrov had a conversation with the Novaya Gazeta journalist Anna Politkovskaya. One of his assistants said to her, "Someone ought to have shot you back in Moscow, right on the street, like they do in your Moscow." Ramzan then repeated after him, "You're an enemy. To be shot." He is alleged by some observers to be behind her murder. On April 13, 2020, Kadyrov threatened the journalist Elena Milashina on Instagram for her news article in Novaya Gazeta about Chechnya's coronavirus lockdown, stating it was defamatory. He also criticized the federal authorities for not taking any action, saying, "If you want us to commit a crime and become criminals, just say so. One will take on this responsibility and serve his time, as required by law." On Telegram, he later labeled her newspaper anti-Russian and a foreign agent, also claiming it stereotyped Chechens. Milashina had also covered Chechnya's gay purges and had been allegedly attacked on February 6, 2020. She accused the Chechen authorities of orchestrating the attack. Over 100 Russian celebrities and human rights activists, in response to Kadyrov's online threats, called upon the federal government to protect Milashina. Novaya Gazeta was made to delete Milashina's article from its website by the Office of the Prosecutor General of Russia, which claimed it was fake news and created a threat to the lives of citizens. Peskov dismissed Kadyrov's threats as an emotional response, saying everyone was on edge due to the coronavirus pandemic. Human Rights Watch criticized Peskov's reaction, stating it was like a stark green light to Chechen officials to act on their threats. On April 21, 2020, the U.S. government-funded Radio Free Europe/Radio Liberty stated that it had complained to Russian authorities after Kadyrov had threatened to punish their North Caucasus bureau chief Aslan Dukov over an article against his government's restrictive coronavirus lockdown measures against farmers in an online video. The ambassador of United States to Russia, John J. Sullivan, condemned Kadyrov's threats against Milashina and Aslan Dukov, stating that freedom of press was a pillar of democracy. In a joint statement, French Human Rights Ambassador-at-Large François Croquet and the German Commissioner for Human Rights Policy Barbel Kofeller called Kadyrov's threats against Milashina unacceptable and urged Russia to investigate. Kadyrov had personally warned to punish the Georgian journalist Georgy Gabunia in June 2020, after he had insulted President Vladimir Putin on air. The State Security Service of Georgia announced the arrest of a Russian citizen on June 15 for an assassination attempt on Gabunia. Georgian media and Gabunia's boss later claimed the assassin was sent by Kadyrov, who denied the allegations and said that if he had sent someone to kill, they would have succeeded. Kadyrov called Gabunia his enemy and said that he should beg for forgiveness by getting down on his knees, otherwise he would continue to remain one. Georgian authorities have neither confirmed nor denied the allegations against Kadyrov. Social media use. Networks. The number of subscribers to Kadyrov's social networks in 2016 was more than 3 million people, including 3 million followers of his Instagram account, according to the Chechen leader's press service. It said that he had 500,000 followers on the Russian VK social network, 760,860 on Facebook, 331,000 on Twitter and 5,447 on LiveJournal. Besides his Instagram postings, it was said that he had also made almost 5,000 on Twitter and 2,300 on VK. The Russian news agency TASS said that Kadyrov had been recognized as the most quoted Russian blogger. In August 2016, The Wall Street Journal reported that Kadyrov had posted nearly 8,000 pictures on Instagram, which made him the online mobile photo sharing, video sharing, and social networking services' most prolific political strongman. The New York Times called Kadyrov's Instagram account bizarre if strangely compelling, and Newsweek said it was flashy. In a 2015 article, the New York Times said that Kadyrov was Instagram addicted. The Russian program director of Human Rights Watch said in an October 2016 article in The Guardian that even the mildest criticism on social media ruthlessly punished through unlawful, punitive detention, enforced disappearances, cruel and degrading treatment, death threats, threats against family members, and physical abuse of family members. She said that a social worker from a small town in Chechnya made a WhatsApp recording that went viral among Chechen users imploring Kadyrov to look into the plight of ordinary people pushed below the poverty line by local officials. The article stated that the woman, with her husband, found herself hauled into the studio of Grozny TV, the state television and radio broadcaster, to face Kadyrov in person, to apologize publicly for her lies. A severe and sweeping repression by the local authorities is designed to remind the Chechen public of Kadyrov's total control, the article claimed. WhatsApp interventions. In May 2015, Kadyrov gave a stern televised lecture to a group of Chechen men and women who were accused of using the WhatsApp messaging service to comment on the impending marriage of a local police chief to a teenage girl some 3 decades younger than him. The wedding had been widely discussed across Russia on reports that the young woman, Ketagoy Labieva, was being coerced into marriage with the chief, Nezhud Gukagov. Behave like Chechens, Kadyrov was reported as telling the assemblage of about a dozen people standing in the marbled courtyard of what appeared to be his government palace. Honor of the family is the most important thing. Don't write such things anymore. You, men, keep your women away from WhatsApp. In its coverage of the incident, the New York Times reported. Lock them in, do not let them go out, and they will not post anything, Mr. Kadyrov said in a video to a sheepish group of men and women who kept their arms folded across their chests and their eyes firmly on the ground during the harangue. In December 2015, a female Chechen social worker criticized Kadyrov in an audio message posted on WhatsApp, after her boss tried to force her to allocate some money from her salary to be collateral for her next month's payment. 3 days after posting the message, she appeared on Grozny TV along with her husband, where she was publicly berated by Kadyrov as well as Parliament Speaker Dodov, Presidential Administration head Islam Kadyrov and her boss. The couple apologized on live television for her message. John Oliver. In May 2016, Kadyrov engaged in a brief Instagram dispute with U.S. television host John Oliver. Kadyrov had posted a message on Instagram asking for help in finding his lost cat. The posting led Oliver to make a 5-minute segment on HBO's Last Week Tonight dealing with the cat's disappearance and, according to The Guardian, Kadyrov's penchant for posting of, for example, regular videos of his workouts in the gym, also on Instagram. In addition, Oliver teased Kadyrov for his propensity to wear t-shirts bearing the image of Russian President Vladimir Putin. After the show, Oliver posted a photo of himself holding a cat, captioned at "R Kadyrov, is this your cat?" Kadyrov responded in English, according to the New York Times, along with a doctored photo of Oliver wearing a Putin t-shirt, captioned, in part, "I am tired of jokes. I want to care for cats in Chechnya. By the way, Putin is our leader." Account suspensions. Kadyrov stated that he found his Russian-language Instagram and Facebook accounts were not working on December 23, 2017, and he never received a response from Instagram after sending a request for service support. His English-language Instagram account remained unaffected, however. Kadyrov accused them of bowing to pressure from United States after he was sanctioned. He wrote on Telegram in response, "Instagram's move, which still wants to pretend it is independent from officials of Washington, is weird." He added, "They wanted to stir my indignation, but were wrong, and this is the only thing which pleases me in actions Instagram and their patrons in the White House are undertaking. I have planned already to quit the network. But I thought I could fail my friends and subscribers, as on Instagram and Facebook I have more than 4 million followers." The Speaker of the State Duma Vyacheslav Volodin stated that the decision by Facebook and Instagram to suspend Kadyrov's accounts violated his rights, stating, "They are afraid of a public conversation and the truth. Such decision cannot be explained in another way. The thing is that to read bloggers and social networks one needs to be their subscribers. By deleting an account, they deprive citizens of their right to know about bloggers' opinion and to communicate with them." Russia's telecommunications overseer Roskomadzer on December 26 asked Facebook to explain why they had suspended his accounts. Facebook issued a statement on December 28 that it did so after he was sanctioned by United States Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control, as these came under trade sanctions. Other events. Call to quarantine proceeds of horse race. On November 3, 2009, a horse owned by Kadyrov, Moralian, came third in the Melbourne Cup, winning about $380,000 in prize money. The leader of the Australian Greens, Senator Bob Brown, immediately called for the Government of Australia to quarantine the prize money until assurances are received as to how the money will be used. Concerns had been previously raised that the Melbourne Cup could be used to launder money by overseas individuals. Honour killings. In 2009, Kadyrov stated his approval of honour killings of 7 women, based on the belief that they were engaging in adultery. In an interview with David Scott of HBO, he condoned honour killings of homosexuals in July 2017, stating, "If we have people here, I'm telling you officially their relatives won't let them be because of our faith, our mentality, customs, traditions. Even if it's punishable under the law, we would still condone it." WikiLeaks. On November 28, 2010, a classified cable published by WikiLeaks named Kadyrov as a starring guest at some of Dagestan's most elaborate weddings, which indicates the political Caucasus power structure in these weddings. In 2006, leaked cables from an American diplomat recounted a lavish wedding attended by Kadyrov in Russia's Caucasus region, in which guests threw $100 bills at child dancers, and which had nighttime water scooter jaunts on the Caspian Sea, and a report that Kadyrov gave the newly married couple a 5-kilo lump of gold. Charlie Hebdo/iCartoons. None. Support for polygamy. Kadyrov supports polygamy in Muslim-majority republics in Russia, and believes that Muslims who speak out against the practice are not true adherents to their faith. According to Kadyrov, men legally marrying more than one wife would be more honest than having many mistresses, and would resolve Russia's demographic problem. In April 2018, he stated that all Muslim men are permitted by Allah to have 4 wives, but discouraged having the marriages officially registered. He also denied reports that polygamy would be legalized in Chechnya. Boston Marathon bombing. After the Boston Marathon bombing, Kadyrov expressed sadness for the victims but denied the suspects had any ties to his region in a statement on his Instagram. He suggested that the suspects were products of American upbringing. Kadyrov accused the CIA of framing Dzhokhar Tsarnaev on March 18, 2015, after he was handed a death sentence for the Boston Marathon bombing, and said that they could not have conducted the bombing without CIA's knowledge. Threats to opposition politicians. On January 31, 2016, Kadyrov posted a video of Russian opposition politicians Mikhail Kazyanov and Vladimir Vladimirovich Kara-Murza in the crosshairs of a gun on his Instagram blog. In a few days, after multiple complaints, Instagram removed the video, prompting Kadyrov to criticize the decision. "This is the much boasted freedom of speech in America. You can write anything but cannot touch those American dogs, those friends of the Congress and the State Department." Report by Ilya Yashin. Russian opposition leader Ilya Yashin authored a report against Kadyrov released on February 23, 2016 during a press conference which was repeatedly interrupted by police and hecklers. He also claimed that Kadyrov had murdered Boris Nemtsov. The report, titled "A National Security Threat," claimed that Kadyrov poses a threat to Russia. It included allegations of corruption, authoritarian rule, secret prisons, rigging votes in favor of Vladimir Putin, stealing from the country's national budget to enrich himself, enforcing Sharia law over Russian law, his lavish lifestyle, building and maintaining a personal army of about 30,000 fighters, purported ties to organized crime figures, and his involvement in politically motivated murders of journalists, human rights activists and political opponents. The report contained 20 questions which Yashin had invited Kadyrov to answer but was refused. Kadyrov dismissed the report, calling it nothing but idle chatter, and posted it on his social network accounts before its release. His spokesman filed a request with the Russian Prosecutor General and the Investigative Committee for Yashin to be arrested for the report, saying it contained slander and insults against Kadyrov. Grozny Fatwa. In August 2016, Kadyrov convened a conference of Islamic scholars, funded by the Taba Foundation in the United Arab Emirates, in Grozny. The conference was attended by notable Islamic scholars, including the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmed El-Tayyib, the Grand Mufti of Egypt, Shaki Alam, the ex-Grand Mufti of Egypt Ali Goma, Usama al-Azhari, who is the religious advisor to Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Habib Ali al-Jifri, and the Mufti of Damascus, Abdul Fattah al-Bizam. The conference was convened to discuss the alleged abuse of Islamic ideas to propagate extremism and to establish the criteria for determining who are the true followers of the Sunnah. The Assembly of Scholars issued a fatwa which declared that those who abide by the Kalam belong to the four madhabs and follow the path of moral self-perfection espoused by distinguished Islamic teachers, primarily the Sufi sheikhs, were the only true believers. The fatwa called the sect of Salafism a dangerous and erroneous contemporary sect, along with extremist groups like the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant and Hizb ut-Tahrir. The conference issued two further documents. In the first, it appealed to President Vladimir Putin to ban Salafism and term any condemnation of traditional Islam as extremism. It proposed the fatwa be regarded as the considered opinion of leading Russian experts when evaluating the activity of Muslim organizations and the preaching of individual clerics. The second document issued a resolution calling for the establishment of a Council for Islamic Education and a Council of Ulama, which would rule on who is and is not a true follower of Sunni Islam. The ruling created a controversy, with both Islamic theologians and secular commentators condemning it, with some seeing it as a bid by Kadyrov to divide Russian Muslims into those who accept the importance he places on teachings of the Sufi brotherhoods and likely what he considers to be traditional Islam without question, and those who do not, labeled as possessing erroneous views. Many of the key participants also disavowed the resolutions. Muqaddasbay Barsov, Mufti of Saratov Oblast, stated that the question of who was a true follower of Sunni Islam was resolved centuries ago. He added that the fatwa failed to take into account the crucial differences between Russia's Muslims, specifically that some Muslim communities did not follow Sufism. Liz Fuller, writing for Radio Free Europe/Radio Liberty, commented that the fatwa seemed to be giving permission to Kadyrov to take any action he likes to punish those whose religious views do not coincide with his own. Yaroslav Trofimov, writing for the Wall Street Journal, described it as a new fracture emerging within Islam. Many Saudi clerics and citizens expressed outrage on social media at the fatwa. The Muslim Brotherhood expressed deep sorrow over the fatwa, stating that it ignited fires of discord among Muslims around the world. Threats to Russian police officers. In 2015, Kadyrov ordered Chechen security forces to shoot to kill if they encountered police officers from other parts of Russia on the territory of the Chechen Republic. Kadyrov said, "I would like to officially state, open fire if someone from Moscow or Stavropol, it doesn't matter where from, appears on your turf without your knowledge. We have to be reckoned with. If you are masters of your territory, then you must control it." According to Ekaterina Sokiryanskaya, some critics claim that Mr. Putin now fears Mr. Kadyrov because he knows any serious attempt to challenge the Chechen leader's position might lead to a third war. Mixed martial arts tournament involving child fighters. A mixed martial arts tournament involving children was held as an exhibition fight on October 4 during the Grand Prix Akhimat 2016 in Grozny and broadcast on Match TV. 3 of Kadyrov's sons, all of them aged under 12, fought in the tournament with Kadyrov sitting in the audience and none of the fighters wearing any protective gear. One of the fights ended with a technical knockout. Kadyrov posted images of the bouts on his Instagram account. The event caused an outcry especially against Kadyrov allowing his children to compete in the tournament. Fedor Emelianenko, the president of Russian MMA Union, criticized the event as inexcusable, stating that rules stipulate fighters under the age of 21 have to wear protective gear while children under the age of 12 are not allowed to compete. Vadim Finkelstein, the head of MMA promotion M1 Global, backed Emelianenko's comments. Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for President Putin, stated that the fact that one of the fights between the children finished with a technical knockout was a reason for the appropriate oversight agencies to inquire about this incident. Deputy Minister of Sports Pavel Kolobkov stated that participation of children under the age of 12 in MMA competitions was illegal while stating that the incident was being investigated. Sports Minister Vitaly Mutko also stated that the event will be investigated. Several Chechen officials responded to Fedor's criticism with insults and accusations, including Timur Dugazev, General Director of Akhmat MMA Promotion, Member of Parliament Adam Delimkhanov, as well as Kadyrov himself. The Ministry of Sports found on October 18 that Kadyrov's promotion had violated regulations. It also found that the event was actually an unlicensed show with no regulatory oversight. The promotion was directed to coordinate with the Ministry of Sports and other regulatory bodies to prevent such irregularities in conduct and handed a letter detailing its failure to comply with the legislation. Comments about nuclear warfare. Kadyrov commented about Russia's nuclear arsenal and tensions between the United States and Russia. He said that America is not really a strong enough state for us to regard it as an enemy of Russia. We have a strong government and are a nuclear state. He added, even if our government was completely destroyed, our nuclear missiles would be automatically deployed. We will put the whole world on its knees and screw it from behind. In October 2022, Kadyrov started advocating for Russia to use low-yield nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Persecution of Muslims in Myanmar. In September 2017, Kadyrov condemned the persecution of Muslims in Myanmar and organized a rally in Grozny in support of persecuted Rohingya people. Kadyrov pledged to oppose the Russian Federation's position if it supported Aung San Suu Kyi's government in Myanmar. Threats to citizens insulting someone's honor. In June 2019, Kadyrov, in an Instagram video, told the citizens of Dagestan to not insult Chechnya or Chechens online amidst a controversy over a piece of land of the republic labeled as belonging to Chechnya, threatening to torture whoever insulted the honor of Chechens. He also warned people to remove any such comments, otherwise they would have to answer to Chechen law enforcement agencies. During a government function organized for medium and small-scale businesses in November 2019, Kadyrov called for online users insulting someone's honor to be killed, arrested, or intimidated per a BBC Russian service translation. He stated in the same speech that he did not call for the targeting of law-abiding citizens, but of others, i.e., crooks, traitors, tattletales, and schizophrenics of all stripes. Kadyrov's spokesman, Alvi Karimov, denied the accuracy of the BBC translation. However, Meduza's translation found that it to be accurate. The speech itself was broadcast on a state-owned TV channel. Russian diplomat Dmitry Peskov stated that Kadyrov's remarks would not be investigated by the Russian government as it was a police matter. Personal life. Kadyrov graduated with a degree in law from the Makhachka Law Institute of Business and Law in 2004. In 2006, he defended his thesis at Dagestan State Technical University to obtain a Candidate of Sciences degree in economics. In 2015, he defended his thesis at Dagestan State University to obtain a Doctor of Sciences degree in economics. Kadyrov has adopted a macho image where he frequently poses with guns and military garb, and associates with mixed martial artists. In 2022, he was pictured in military garb and $1,580 Prada monolith boots. The New Yorker says that Kadyrov has adopted various personalities over the years: the merciless warrior in fatigues who leads special operations to kill anti-government rebels, the jolly Caucasus baron who spars with Mike Tyson and shows off his private zoo, the family man and observant Muslim who has banned alcohol, ordered that women wear headscarves in public buildings, and boasts that his 6-year-old son has memorized the Quran. In 1996, Kadyrov married Medni Musaevna Kadyrova. The couple are parents of 12 children. 2 sons, Adam and Eli, have earned the title of Hafiz, while 3 daughters, Aishat, Khadizat, and Kutmat, have earned the title of Hafiza. Kutmat and another daughter, Ashura, performed together with the Nasht singer Mashari Rashid Al-Afasi in 2015. Khadizat was recognized as the most gifted student in Chechnya in 2016 and qualified for participation in the Pan-Russian Contest Student of the Year 2016 on February 20, 2016. Medni launched her Firdaus fashion line in March 2012 in Dubai. Aishat presented her own fashion collection in March 2017 and took over her mother's fashion enterprise, Firdaus. She was appointed the first Deputy Culture Minister of Chechnya in September 2020 by her father. According to a 2021 investigation by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, Kadyrov has a second wife, Fatima Hazwieva. Kadyrov reportedly met Hazwieva when she was 14 years old at a 2006 beauty pageant. He reportedly also has a third wife, a singer and dancer named Aminat Akhmadova. Kadyrov enjoys boxing and is the owner of Fight Club Akhmat, a professional sports club that focuses on boxing and mixed martial arts. Wealth. The Russian Federation funnels money to the Kadyrov family. The distinction between the Chechen government and Kadyrov are blurred. In 2015, Chechnya received around 57 billion rubles a year from Moscow. The family obtains money through the Akhmad Kadyrov Fund, a non-transparent foundation which describes itself as a charity and is headed by Kadyrov's mother, Ayman. In 2011, the foundation funded Kadyrov's lavish 35-year birthday party, which featured celebrities such as Seal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Vanessa Mae, and Hilary Swank. When journalist Mariana Maximovskaya asked him where the money for the live televised celebration was coming from, he reportedly laughed and said Allah gives it to us, before adding, I don't know, it comes from somewhere. Journalists have been targeted by Kadyrov's regime for reporting on his opulence. Kadyrov is a noted collector of sports cars. He owns a Lamborghini Reventon, one of only 20 sold. He is also known for his extensive collection of Chechen daggers. Kadyrov has been linked to the ownership of a private jet. Kadyrov's family members own luxurious real estate in Moscow. 2 of his wives own property valued at $8 million in total, which is more than twice Kadyrov's declared salary since 2008. See also: Politics of Chechnya.